sudando la gota, salimos a matar, no queremos derrota. Vamos a levantar la copa. This is football.
Welcome. This is football. Bienvenidos a This is Football. Danny back with you for another preview. We have the Inter Miami versus Real Salt Lake preview, and I'm going to welcome a good friend of mine. He's living in Miami now, but he's a big Real Salt Lake fan. He's got a podcast, the Royal Riots, if I'm correct. And I'm going to bring him on right now, my buddy LD. Thank you so much for coming on. I was actually on your guys' show yesterday. We previewed a little bit of the game yesterday. I'm so glad to welcome you on the show today. How's it going, man?
Hey, Danny, what's up, my man? It's good to be on the show. I'm not going to lie. I got to give you some slack here. You were just on it last night. It's the Royal Riot, my man. The Royal Riot. But you know what? Real is Royal in Espanol, no? So, like, I get it.
There you go. See, I'm mixed up with the Real and the Royal. So, hey, we got it. I got it in Spanish, so better than
no, it worked. It worked out good. But yeah, like you said, I'm super excited to be here with you on the pod. Danny did such a good job on our pod last night, so it's an honor to be here as well, helping out with This Is Football. I've been a fan for a while now, my man. Ever since you showed me the podcast about, I think, almost 2 years ago now. But yeah, doing big things, and it's a good opportunity.
Awesome, man. Awesome. All right, well, let's get into it. I know that we had some Inter Miami news just dropped a little while ago, but we'll get into that a little bit later. I really, really want to get into the preview. So we talked a little bit about on your guys' show yesterday. You guys had a really good question for me, which was, what do the Inter Miami fans think about Real Salt Lake? And my response was, I don't think the Inter Miami fans really know who Real Salt Lake is, other than the fact that they're a team that's somewhat named after maybe Real Madrid and they're in Utah. That's probably all that they know. So why don't you give the Inter Miami faithful a little idea of the type of team and the players that they're going to be facing tomorrow?
Yeah, for sure, man. And no offense taken there, because that's how all of us as Real Salt Lake fans already know. Like, when it comes to us facing these big market teams, right? We're kind of the little stepbrother in the league that just kind of gets ignored all the time, and we're kind of just thrown by the wayside. But don't worry, like, us fans, we thrive off of that energy. We've kind of been forced to have to thrive off that energy, right? We know our role in this league, and we play it very well. So Real Salt Lake has been a team that has always been a team that's battled for its crest, and it wants to be known within the league. And we never like being the favorites. We always want to be the underdog team that people see when it comes to these matchups, because that's when we honestly feel like we perform better. I think the players on the club are able to really value that. The fans in the stands are able to really value that. Coaching staff, everyone in the organization. So that's what it's like being a member of Real Salt Lake. It's really earning your due in this league, and I think we do that pretty well for the most part. This team this year came off a very decent season last year. I think a lot of people expected us to not make playoffs last season. Honestly, every year people don't expect us to make playoffs for some reason or another, whether it's the coach, whether it's the players that we have, whether it's us not bringing in the right players for our system, whatever it may be, there's an excuse for people to always count us out. And then every year we seem to make it into the playoffs somehow. And then not only just make it, but try and make some noise as well. I think we're the only team in the Western Conference in the last so many seasons who has been to the playoffs 3 years in a row consistently. So that's a big kudos that we like to wear right now. Obviously, that's not all we're happy about. We want to make it to the final dance, right? But I think this year we're feeling really excited because we're bringing back a lot of the team from last year that played really well. We have Chicho Arango, who joined us midway through the season, who has now had a preseason with us, is going to be here for the full season. He's already gelled well with the team. He just got named captain of Real Salt Lake today. So I know he is super committed to this club, and he's ready to make some noise for this club as well. We brought in some really cool talent like Fidel Barajas from the USL. Many people might not know who he is right now, but that's kind of how people thought about Diego Luna when we pulled up Diego Luna from the USL. No one really knew about Diego Luna, and we see the noise that he's making now, and that's pretty much what they're hoping is going to happen with Fidel Barajas as well. We brought a number 10 in Matt Crooks from the championship. He's supposed to make some noise for us as well. And then Alexandris Catranas, who's going to be a player that we're bringing in from Greece. So a lot of good moves, no big star shiny moves, but we have 2 DP slots still open. And I think the team's perspective right now is to really just see where this team is at. They have confidence that they can go in and pull results. And then when the summer comes by, see how short we are from making a run to the title, and then maybe filling in those spots towards the summer.
Absolutely. You kind of nailed it on the head in terms of all the players. You talked about Diego Luna, who is, I want to say a super, a rising star. He shined for the U.S. men's U20 national team when he played for them, and really there was a lot of talk about maybe him, being sold because he was playing so well, right? Ultimately, he decided to stay, and like you said, you guys have added some more players. And one thing that I love about Real Salt Lake, that I've been a big proponent for, as at least for Inter Miami, is I've always wanted more South Americans. And it seems like Real Salt Lake, with Pablo Mastroeni at the helm, who we all know is Argentine American, has been doing that because they're bringing in Colombians. We talked about it yesterday. So you talked about about the big Colombian on the team, which is Arango, obviously. But, there's some other Colombians on the team as well, and South Americans, especially one Uruguayan, which most folks might not be aware of. But one of the defenders in Real Salt Lake is Marcelo Silva, he's a Uruguayan. So I'm excited to see him play tomorrow. But what can you tell us about, the Colombians, or really the South Americans that Real Salt Lake has brought in?
Yeah, ever since the beginning of Real Salt Lake, we've been really heavily influenced by Latino players coming into our team and making a big difference. I'm sure a lot of Inter Miami fans are familiar with the name Javier Morales, who made his career at Real Salt Lake. That man is beloved in RSL. Obviously, the way that he left the club wasn't the best way and wasn't what the fans wanted, and we don't agree with how the organization did it. But I think we've been able to put salt over the wound been able to kind of remove the salt from the wound since then. They've built that connection back and that friendship back, and his name is hanging up in our stadium as we speak right now. So that's a man that we really endear. But as I was saying, Real Salt Lake has always really endeared the Latino player population that comes to our team. Right now we are seeing that with Brian Vera on the as one of the central defenders. We see that with, like you said, Marcelo Silva from Uruguay. We have Pablo Ruiz, who is a game changer for us, man. We lost him in the middle of last season, and that really affected our team. And to have him back healthy this year now is what gets us really excited to see him ball out again. Like we said, we have Chicho Arango, we have Andres Gomez, so many just valuable, talented players. And we have some established players on the team that are of Latino descent, and still players who are out there trying to prove their worth to this club and in this league. So there's a really nice blend there where this Latino fusion is really happening here in Real Salt Lake. And I know what people think, right? Like Utah, Salt Lake City, Utah, there's no Latinos out there. It's just a bunch of white people out there. I was born and raised there, so I get it. And that's not all wrong. But Utah has changed a lot over the years, man. And there's a lot of Latino community living out there now. A lot of people who are leaving from California and moving with that Latino influence as well. So it's cool to see these players come in and kind of embrace the culture of Utah, but as well still get to feel a little bit at home because there is some of that Latino community still around. La Barra Real is one of the supporter groups for RSL that is heavily influenced with the Latino community. And they're the loudest ones at the stadium, man, banging the drums, chanting all the songs. So we love that supporter section as well as all the other ones that are there at the Riot. But yeah, like you said, it adds a whole nother flair to the game. And we're expecting big things from players, like we said, Brian Vera, Andres Gomez. Nelson Palacios is another guy in the central midfield that we really love. Brian Ojeda from Paraguay. So a lot of Latinos, they started to kind of move a little bit more back to Europe with the recent move. But I mean, man, we have so many Colombians. I think you got to mix it up a little bit here and there with those European players. But yeah, they're a big effect on this club right now. And I can tell you a lot of the Latino players are always the fan favorites for sure.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's probably because the fan base really sees them either play in Europe or maybe play for bigger teams in South America in a Copa Libertadores, Copa Sudamericana, which is out there. And so the fans in the United States are getting more familiar with with these young players that are playing on big clubs down in South America. And they're starting to learn about the players, what, how they play, what they do. And little by little, I'm calling it, the South American, I guess we can call it, I don't know, I don't want to talk negatively, but we'll just call it the big South American something migration or something of players. But that's basically what I see is happening.
Right.
So you mentioned. So now I'm curious because I didn't want to get into fan bases, but now I'm curious because you mentioned a couple of the supporters groups over in Salt Lake City that support Real Salt Lake. So I'm curious. I've never been to a game. I don't think I've watched many games that were taking place at home in Salt Lake City. But do the fans predominantly sing in Spanish or English out there?
Yeah, so that's actually a really good question, right? I think one thing that people know about Real Salt Lake is we have something called the Believe Anthem, and it's a really it's a really well-known anthem around the league. The guy who was the drummer, or maybe singer, I can't remember. He was in the band Rancid. He made our theme song, our anthem, and it's a really catchy tune. We sing it before every game, and it really just gets the fan base pumped and going. But they've made a real big push to really try to include the Latino community as well. So La Barra Real, the supporter section there, does really, really good at being able to chant those Spanish songs and be able to make that well known throughout the stadium. And we've actually, they released a new song that they want the fan base to catch on to that's called Somos Real. And it's essentially an English and Spanish version together of singing We Are Real and Somos Real at the same time. And it's really cool how they put it together. You can look it up on YouTube. I'm sure you'll hear it, on broadcast this year whenever RSL does get some type of attention when it comes to these TV spots. But yeah, I would say the majority is still in English for sure, but you're starting to see that Latino community grow more and more and more. And I think at the end of the day, to be honest, La Barra Real, they're the loudest supporter section in the stadium per se. But there's still, a very heavily English influenced atmosphere at the stadium. But it's still nice to have that little Latin spice, there in the South section at Rio Tinto that's singing all the songs. And they go the whole time, man. I will give them credit. They go all 90 minutes like you would expect any type of Latino culture fan base to be like. So you get a really good mix of everything, and it's only growing more and more.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. I want to stick a little bit with the fan base and talk a little bit about something that and you're well aware of this because you live down here. So and you go to the Inter Miami games. You're well aware of the ticket prices down here. You're well aware of how the fan base has been reacting over the last 6 months in terms of, ticket prices going up. And now they're saying that ticket prices are going to double again at the new stadium. Everybody's just pissed off. Everybody's mad about paying $200 for tickets. What are the ticket prices out in Real Salt Lake? Are you paying, maybe season ticket holders are paying, less than that, but what is an average maybe tourist that goes to any Real Salt Lake game? What are they going to pay on average?
If you want a good average seat at the stadium, and at Rio Tinto Stadium, or America First Field, I believe is what it's called now. Sorry, I have to keep up to date now that I'm out here in Miami. But you can find a good ticket anywhere from $28 to $32. I would say it was very comparable to how Inter Miami ticket prices were before Messi. Okay. I think there were a lot of deals that you could find for Inter Miami games, especially when the team wasn't playing that great, right? It was not that hard to try and get some tickets to the game. So that's kind of how it is with RSL. Now, there's plenty of cash you can spend on the really nice club seats over at the stadium. And if you want to go all out, you can go for that. But yeah, that's one thing about Utah is that we have a lot of affordable things because we're not very ritzy, glitzy, and glammy like the streets here, the lights out here in Miami. A lot of the people out there are hard blue collar working people. They're just out, on the weekend to have a good time, but they don't have a lot of cash to spend all the time. So they make the sports really affordable there. And I think that helps because it really sells out games when people can afford these games and not feel like they're, spending an arm and a leg to have to attend one game, one weekend. And sometimes that even turns into them wanting to get season tickets because they're like, oh, well, I can afford this game. And they show up and they catch the passion and the addiction of what it's like being able to go to these soccer matches. So it's nothing like here in Miami to what we're seeing right now with the ticket prices. I'm a season ticket holder for Inter Miami living out here. And so I know what it's all about. I know what it's all about right now. So yeah, completely different opposites when it comes to Real Salt Lake and Inter Miami ticket prices right now, for sure.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. All right. Well, I know you got to head out of here in a couple minutes. I want to get into two quick questions before I let you go. One has to do with, I don't know if you saw, but the odds came out today for the MLS Cup for 2024. Inter Miami is the favorite. Surprise, surprise. Mm-hmm. Although I don't think they should be the favorite. That's my opinion. But I want to talk a little about Real Salt Lake. Real Salt Lake is at plus 4,000. They're 18th out of all the teams. That's where they're ranked. Mm-hmm. Are you, do you feel that that's a fair ranking in terms of what the odds are saying that Real Salt Lake is a middle of the pack team? Or did you expect them to maybe be favored a little bit more? Considering, look, you're looking at some of the teams that are in the top, and they have the Red Bulls in there in the top, as well as some other teams that, maybe didn't bring in enough players or reinforce themselves enough to match up with Real Salt Lake. What do you think about, basically the odds makers saying that Real Salt Lake is middle of the pack?
Yeah, I'll be super biased, right? I always think the club should be getting more respect than it's getting, especially on the national level of things. But I can also get it from the perspective of there's a lot of bigger markets out here in this league that have bigger names, bigger talent playing for them. So I get it. Like, it doesn't shock me when I see us there. You know, we won the MLS Cup back in 2009. We made it to an MLS Cup in 2013 that we lost in a penalty shootout to Sporting Kansas City. And I still say to this day, if they would have actually, you know, if the ref had a brain that game and would have actually red carded the player they should have, RSL would have gotten a penalty and won the MLS Cup in that game. But, you know, since then, we've kind of struggled with being able to really make a huge run in the playoffs. I think about in 2021 when Pablo Mastroeni took over for his first season, we made it a run to the Western Conference final. And we were one, you know, game short of away from being in the final, the MLS Cup final. So the history is there, right? We've been able to make championship runs. We've been able to make good runs in the playoffs. And I think that's what keeps fan bases believing as far as the Real Salt Lake fan base on how far we can go when we get there. And maybe that's why we just feel like we deserve to be bumped up a little higher, especially last year after surpassing expectations and bringing back pretty much the same team and adding more players to it. Yeah, we lost the likes of Jefferson Savarino, who went back to, you know, Brazil to go play for Botafogo, and we lost a couple other players like Damir Kreilach, who helped score goals last year. But we also have a really good amount of talent like Diego Luna, Chicho Arango, Andres Gomez, and and 2 DP spots still open that we can bring in the summer. I guess I can say it's fair from the national media attention sort of view, but I don't think it's very fair if you're an RSL fan and know what this team is capable of. And if I know anything about Pablo Mastroeni, he's going to use this as fuel. They do. Whenever they get disrespected, whenever they feel like they're undervalued, they use that as fuel, and that's usually what drives them to end up proving people wrong like they usually do every season.
Absolutely. All right, man. Last quick question before I get a prediction out of you. I know we kind of went over predictions yesterday. I predicted 2-1 Inter Miami, maybe 1-1. That was my prediction. I'll get yours in a second, but I wanted to talk about coaching for a second. You know, we've mentioned Pablo Mastroeni, also some former coaches of Real Salt Lake. You guys had Daryl Shore for a time period, Jeff Cassar, Jason Kreis, all guys that have ties to South Florida. Daryl Shore, if you can remember, was a coach of the Fort Lauderdale, I believe Fort Lauderdale Strikers for a time period. Jeff Cassar was a goalie for the Miami Fusion way back in the day. I can remember that. Jason Kreis was actually an assistant coach down here for Phil Neville for a time period. And now Pablo Mastroeni, who's at the helm, was former captain and player for the Miami Fusion back in the day. So a lot of interesting ties to South Florida with Real Salt Lake there. Is that just coincidence, you think, or are you guys just trying to steal from the South Florida pipeline?
No, listen, I'll always be grateful for South Florida and the talent it's produced when it comes to the beautiful game of football, right, or soccer. Yeah, man, here's the thing is we've had a good run of coaches. Jason Kreis will always be beloved for this organization. I know he spent some time over there at New York City and then went to Orlando. And then went to Inter Miami eventually as well. He even spent some time in the U.S. national team system. So, you know, he's someone that we'll always love, and we're happy to have back in the organization. Daryl Shore, I actually forgot that he had a connection to South Florida. He was the interim head coach for us when they ended up getting rid of Jeff Cassar. So that's kind of an interesting one to bring up as well. But all these coaches, man, they've had their really good moments, you know, for us. Mainly Jason Kreis winning the MLS Cup for us. I think that's he'll always be beloved. And they also didn't have the greatest moments, and you know that's why it was time to move on from them. But I think we were always thankful for the piece of history that they brought to RSL. And you know, like I mentioned before, having even someone like Javier Morales, who was such an impact on Real Salt Lake, now be over at Inter Miami, we root for him, man. When he was the interim after they sacked Neville, you know, RSL fans really wanted Javier Morales to get the job because we thought, you know, we love that man. And obviously, I don't think in our minds we actually thought he'd get it, but you know, we were rooting for him to do good to maybe get a coaching opportunity somewhere else as well. So, you know, us as RSL fans, I think with you sharing those stats and those facts, we can't be nothing but grateful for South Florida. We'll have to take away the truce tomorrow when we come and bring our A game and bring our all. But then after that, we promise we'll be respectful to South Florida and South Floridians all over again.
That's awesome. All right, man. Give me your best prediction for tomorrow. Are you taking Real Salt Lake or are you taking Inter Miami?
You know, man, this is a hard one. We talked about this, right? Especially the first game of the season. You don't know if the teams are just going to throw balls to the wall because there's really nothing to lose. It's the first game of the season, right? Let's see how we go and do. Is Inter Miami going to go all out because it's their home opener? They got to put on a show, and they're playing someone inferior, quote unquote inferior, right? Like Real Salt Lake. Like not go out and just attack, right? And really give your fans a show. From the RSL perspective, right, we want to make sure that we don't get embarrassed in Miami. This is a big game for us. This is a season opener. Usually this should be like an LAFC or an LA Galaxy or New York City opening up the season against Inter Miami. But we were lucky to get the time slot for this one. So we we are able to contend in this league and contend for a cup. And the last thing we want to do is get blown out 3-0, 4-0 to Leo and friends, right? So I don't know, man. It's so hard to guess what's going to happen. I know that you said the draw, and I want to say that, but I don't want to copy you and saying that there's possibly going to be a draw in this. So what I am going to say is that I think it's going to be a 1-1 game for the majority of the match. And then I think RSL is going to sneak one in at the very end, whether that's the Chicho Arango gets into the 18 and makes the magic happen, or maybe even kind of a random corner where your defenders just mismatch the marking and we're able to get a header in. I think RSL comes out on top 2-1, but I've been wrong before, and I'm sure it's not going to be crazy if I'm wrong again. But I'm excited for the game. I'm excited for the atmosphere. I want to give a shout out to the Inter Miami fans. As a Real Salt Lake fan, when the new stadium is up, it's 2025, right? That's new
right.
Stadium will be up. I'm excited to see what the atmosphere there will be like. But even now with the new, I guess it's Chase Stadium now. We're going to enjoy our time tomorrow night, and so really looking forward to it. And I'm hoping for an injury-free game, and we get to see some really good football tomorrow night.
Awesome, LD. I appreciate you coming on. I wanted you to go ahead, plug the hell out of Royal Riot, and let the folks know where they can find you at. Right, looks like LD's having some trouble. All right, well, I'll definitely plug LD for everybody here. You can find him at Royal Riot on Twitter. Definitely check them out. They have awesome content for Real Salt Lake, and also on their podcast. Definitely check them out. Royal Riot. They have awesome stuff. Definitely check them out. It's fantastic. All right, before we wrap this up, I want to get into a couple of things that happened today in Inter Miami, getting prepared for the season opener tomorrow. Finally, Federico Redondo was announced. The signing is final, something that we talked about on this show a couple weeks ago with our friend Will Forbes over from at MLS Moves. We talked about it with him. We had heard that it was a possibility that, I see he's back. All right. LD, welcome back. I plugged it for you, but I want you to go ahead because it doesn't sound good coming out of my mouth. It's got to come out of you. So go for it.
Yeah, my man. So yeah, we're part of the Royal Riot. It's a Real Salt Lake podcast. We talk all things RSL. One special thing about our podcast that not a lot of other podcasts do is we'll bring on a lot of the opposing fan base on for a preview. We'll interview a lot of the players, a lot of the people from the organization within RSL. But we also talk a lot about MLS, right? We had a conversation on our last episode about the whole U.S. Open Cup and MLS fiasco that's going on right now. So we are very, very heavily RSL based, but we also like to talk just MLS in general, football in general. So if you ever want a good preview of RSL for your team that when you'll be playing them, please plug the Royal Riot Pod. You can find us on Twitter or X, whatever they're calling it nowadays. You can follow us on Instagram. And again, just so thankful to be able to be here with Danny with This Is Football Podcast. Such an awesome thing you got going here, my man. I love that opening. I had to tell you that. I love that opening, man. Like, that's the one thing I love about Miami, man. There's always some spice you got to throw in there to get people going. And I'm sure that's exactly the atmosphere we're going to be getting tomorrow night. So looking forward to it.
100%, man. Well, thank you so much again. And just like he said, and I've got it right down there for you, at Royal Riot Pod. Go ahead and follow him on Twitter /X, whatever you guys want to call it. LD, thank you, sir. Hope you have a good time tomorrow. Unfortunately, I will not be there. I'm a little injured and I'm on crutches, so I cannot make it out to the game tomorrow. But have a good time, and I hope you get a great game, win or lose, either way.
Thanks, my man. Buena suerte. Get well, all right?
Gracias. Nos vemos. All right. Thank you so much, LD, for coming on. Before we wrap it up, again, I wanted to get into Inter Miami finally signed Federico Redondo. It's done deal. Federico Redondo should be here by the end of the week. They were able to get rid of Coco today, Quarantine Gene. They got rid of him, and they're roster compliant. They're ready to go. Here we have Ricardo Pedrini giving us, a clapping. I assume that's more likely for LD, not for me. He was the star of this show. Really, we were previewing Real Salt Lake. We want the fans in South Florida to understand who it is that their team is playing tomorrow. And that's why we're going to bring on, folks from other podcasts. I did have one announcement that I wanted to make before I wrap this up. I know I had said earlier this year that we were going to have a podcast for you every single Tuesday evening. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to break that promise. I have been offered, and I'm happy to announce this, I've been offered a position to become the director of communications for a local club down here, and I have taken that position. And so I'm going to step away a little bit from This is Football. It won't be the last program. We will have some more podcasts as the season goes on. It just will not be every Tuesday. Definitely follow us at TI Football Podcast, both on Twitter and on Instagram, to continue getting all of our information, whether it's on Inter Miami, on Uruguayans, in the MLS, on South Americans, on other teams in the MLS. We will be there posting it all. We will not be stepping away from This is Football. We will continue going hard with This is Football, just putting a pause on the shows. I see here Ed Bartra asks, is Ian Frey clear to play? From what I know, no, he is not cleared to play. He still has his knee injury. I know that today, Coco Jean, who was eventually cut from the team, came back to practice. Also, Franco Negri came back to practice today. He was practicing on his own. Today's also his birthday, so happy birthday to Franco Negri, and we hope that he has a speedy recovery. He reached out to one of our correspondents, and he let them know that he just has a short time left, and he's really hoping to come back and play quite a bit. He says he's ready to compete, and really he's ready to play wherever it is. So be on the lookout. Possibly he might be able to. He might be one to play left center back. He might be back there sharing the back line with Toto Aviles, possibly with Nicolas Freire. It's a possibility. He's a little bit taller than Noah Allen. Maybe he definitely is built a little bit stronger than Noah Allen. We've seen Noah play in the back there, especially when Tata's played five in the back. So we're gonna have to wait and see. Alvaro here says Ruiz gonna have a breakout season. Look, Alvaro, I don't think you're wrong, bro. I don't think you're wrong. He showed all the qualities during the preseason. In my opinion, he was one of the better players in the preseason for Inter Miami. So I have no doubt that he's ready to have a breakout season. The good thing about young David is that he can play, in two of the three positions in the midfield. He can possibly play as a winger, and really the sky's the limit for the kid. We see here a good friend of the program, an ex-host here, Socio, puts Kremaski is going to be IMCF MVP. Possibly Socio, possibly. I don't think so. I think David Ruiz has the upper hand right now on Kremaski. I think after Kremaski was called up to the national team, his level kind of went down. And he just wasn't as effective after he got called to the national team. So we'll see what happens, when Kremaski comes back from his hernia injury. Sebastian, another good friend of the program, and thank you so much for joining. He says, hello, so sad to hear about This is Football. He's taking his daughter tomorrow to see Messi for the first time, so hopefully they win with Leo scoring. Sad that I won't be at the stadium. Yeah, unfortunately, I'm sorry. I had an injury yesterday, and I tore my plantar fascia, so it's tough for me to walk right now. I'm on crutches. I'm trying to do the best that I can. I hope you have a good time tomorrow, Seba, with you and your daughter, and hopefully Leo scores and Inter Miami wins. I had said that I was hoping for a 2-1 win, considering how the defense has been. The defense was a lot better in that Newell's Old Boys game than it was the rest of the preseason. But we'll see what happens tomorrow. Real Salt Lake is coming with a healthy squad. They've got a nice squad that they've put together. Like LD said, they've got players like Chicho Arango, they've got Diego Luna, Andres Gomez, Pablo Ruiz, a lot of good South American players, that played very, very well together last year. They finished pretty decently last year in the standings. I'm looking it up right now. They finished 5th in the Western Conference. They were knocked out of the playoffs. But overall, it's going to be a tough game tomorrow for Inter Miami. I don't think it's going to be easy. Socio here says, get well soon. Appreciate it, buddy. Yeah, we got to go back to the Heat games. I know. We'll see if I'm able to go in a couple weeks. We'll see if I can start walking. But other than that, really nothing else left to say about tomorrow other than I think MLS is ready. Inter Miami clearly is ready. Luis Suarez already came out and said he is ready. Leo Messi already came out, apologized to the Hong Kong people, and then said he was ready. So Tata Martino confirmed today both Leo and Suarez are ready to play 90 minutes. We don't know if they're going to play 90 minutes. I would think that they don't play 90 minutes, considering there's another game on Sunday against the LA Galaxy. So maybe look for them playing 60 to 65, maybe 70 minutes. We know Leo doesn't like to come out once he starts. So we'll definitely keep an eye on him and see how he does, especially with the pain that he had in the back of his leg. We know that he had an issue in what we say in Spanish, el aductor, which is essentially, behind your leg. So let's see if that affects him tomorrow. I don't think he really got injured in terms, like he pulled something. I think it's just he's an older person. He's playing more games on less days rest. And it just happens. It happens to all of us. Look, it happened to me yesterday. I played on Saturday, then I played again yesterday, and look what happens. It's just age, and that's just what happens when you get a little older. So like I said, let's just summarize a little bit about today's show. We got MLS opening night tomorrow. Don't forget to watch it. Inter Miami versus Real Salt Lake. It'll be live on Apple TV. For those of you that don't have Apple TV, maybe you can find a stream somewhere else. I'll see if I can tweet one out for you guys. If I can find a free stream, I'll see if I can tweet one out on the This Is Football account. Make sure you are following us at TI Football Podcast. Also, I do tweet a lot from my personal account. So if you want to follow my personal account, it's at Danny Solana5, DANI, like a South American, not DANNY, like a gringo. So definitely check me out on there as I drop some news, and Socio can, he can tell you, we drop some news usually every other day. We have some tidbits on there, that we're getting from all of our good friends who are close to the league and close to the team. So we hope to continue to provide you with those great tidbits that we've been providing you over the last year. And like I said, this is not a goodbye. It is a see you later. We will be back in a few weeks. We'll be back in a few weeks to preview the Orlando City Inter Miami game, which is going to take place in Miami on Saturday, I believe it's March 5th at 4:30 p.m. So we will preview that maybe next week at some point, and we will get ready for Inter Miami 2024. And like Socio said, drop a like, man. Drop a like. Give us a thumbs up. If you stayed to the end of the podcast, I absolutely appreciate it. If you haven't yet, give us a follow on Instagram, on Twitter. Like I said, we post things almost every day. We try to keep you guys up to date with all the Inter Miami news, with all the news that is going on in the MLS. If you haven't yet, definitely check out our Spotify, check out our Apple Music account. We put all of our podcasts on Spotify, on Apple Music, on all of the other streaming accounts. Definitely check us out on there. For This Is Football, we appreciate you guys joining us like always. We'll be back in a couple weeks. We're out.